Welcome back, my dear students. Today we are going to talk about a very important topic, polyembryony. तो polyembryony क्या है? Polyembryony simply means presence of more than one embryos in a seed. Okay, occurrence of more than one embryos in a seed is known as polyembryony. Normally एक seed में एक embryo होता है, and if a seed contains more than one embryos, this phenomenon is known as polyembryony. In nature, there are many plants containing more than one embryos in their seeds, but only one embryo matures, it reaches the maturity, and the rest they degenerate during the process of development. Okay, this is very much important. The phenomenon of polyembryony, it was first time reported by Anthony van Leeuwenhoek in the year 1719 in orange seeds. तो polyembryony फर्स्ट टाइम रिपोर्ट की गई ऑरेंज सीड्स में बाय एंटोनी वैन लीवनहॉक इन द ईयर 1719. Now the origin of polyembryony. How polyembryony originates? On the basis of origin, four types of polyembryony are recognized in angiosperms. The first one is cleavage polyembryony. Cleavage polyembryony में क्या होता है? Splitting or cleavage of proembryo takes place. Okay, when zygote divides, it forms a proembryo. Then this proembryo it splits. Okay, it splits, and some regions of the proembryo they can give rise to many embryos. Simple. Second one is apogamy. Apogamy में क्या होता है? Apogamy means embryo formation takes place from cells of the embryo sac other than the fertilized egg. ये embryo sac है. It contains fertilized egg here. These are the synergids. These are the antipodals. This is the central cell. If embryo formation takes place from cells of the embryo sac other than the fertilized egg, this phenomenon is known as apogamy. Simple. Development of more than one embryo sacs. In some plants, it has been found that more than one embryo sac formation takes place. Okay, and this can also give rise to more than one embryos. And finally, embryo development from sporophytic tissues like nucellus or integments. So these are the four ways through which polyembryony can occur in angiosperm. Now we will talk about each of these one by one. First of all, what is cleavage polyembryony? It's the most common and simplest method of development of more than one embryos in the seeds of angiosperms. In this process, cleavage of zygote or proembryo leads to polyembryony. क्या होता है? या तो zygote में cleavage हो जाती है. Okay, it can give rise to two regions, two parts. This one can give rise to one embryo, and this one can give rise to another embryo. Okay, or zygote divides normally, reaches the proembryo stage, and this proembryo it cleaves. Some regions of this proembryo they can give rise to many embryos. Cleavage polyembryony, it is of common occurrence in gymnosperms, but it is of rare occurrence in angiosperms. So cleavage polyembryony ज़्यादातर gymnosperms में पाई जाती है. ओके, अगर हम angiosperms में देखेंगे cleavage polyembryony का उतना इन्फ्लुएंस नहीं है. It was first time reported by Jeffrey in the year 1895 in Erythronium americanum and subsequently in other plant species. So cleavage polyembryony was first time reported by Jeffrey in the year 1895 in Erythronium americanum, and it was subsequently found in other plant species as well. Now the second one, formation of embryos by other cells of embryo sac, or you can say apogamy. So इस वाली process में क्या होता है? Additional embryos they originate from cells of the embryo sac other than the fertilized egg. If other cells of the embryo sac, including antipodals, synergids, if they give rise to embryos other than the embryo egg cell, okay, this is known as apogamy. Commonly, the embryos they originate from synergids. It has been found that in most of the cases, The additional embryos, they arise from the synergids. Now there are two cases. The embryos can originate from unfertilized synergids. In some plant species, the embryos, they can originate from unfertilized synergids. Example is Argemone mexicana and Phaseolus vulgaris. इन दो प्लांट स्पीशीज में देखा गया जो synergids है, they are haploid. Okay, they are not fertilized. They are haploid and they give rise to new embryos. Okay, and in other plants like Poa alpina and Sagittaria graminea, what happens is the synergids, they get fertilized. Okay, they get fertilized because of the presence of more than one pollen tubes. More than one pollen tubes penetrate the embryo sac. Okay, that means there are more than two sperms. So the additional sperms, they fertilize the synergids, and these fertilized synergids, they give rise to new embryos. Yaad rakhna. There are two cases. One, the embryos, they can originate from unfertilized synergids. Example is Argemone mexicana and Phaseolus vulgaris. Second one is the additional embryos, they can originate from fertilized synergids, and the example is Poa alpina and Sagittaria graminea. Now, from antipodals, it has been found that in some cases, antipodal cells can also give rise to new embryos. Formation of embryos from the antipodals, it is of rare occurrence and have been reported from Allium odorum and Ulmus americana. दो प्लांट स्पीशीज में ये पाया गया है, फ्रॉम एलियम ओडोरम एंड अल्मस अमेरिकाना. In these two plant species, the additional embryos, they arise from the antipodals, and the viability of these additional embryos originating from the antipodal cells, it is uncertain. Okay, it is not certain whether they are viable or non-viable. The embryos originating from the antipodal cells, they are not. It's not sure whether they are viable or non-viable. Here you can see the origin of embryos from synergids or antipodal cells. Here, this is the embryo that has originated from one of the antipodal cells. Okay, you can see here, this is the normal zygotic embryo at the micropolar end, and this is the embryo that has arisen, that has originated from one of the antipodal cells. Okay, now the additional embryo sacs. This is the third way that leads to polyembryony. Multiple embryo sacs in an ovule can arise due to, the first one is formation of more than one megaspore mother cells. Example is Solanum melangina and Hydrilla verticillata. क्या होता है? In these plant species, more than one megaspore mother cells are there. Okay, when there are more than one megaspore mother cells, obviously they will divide by meiosis. This will result in the formation of 4 megaspores. This will divide and result in the formation of 4 megaspores. Okay, and this is another megaspore mother cell. It will divide and result in the formation of 4 megaspores. Okay, now 3 from each set will degenerate, जैसे होता है normally. Okay, and we are having how many functional megaspores? We are having 3 functional megaspores, and each can give rise to a separate embryo sac. Okay, so multiple embryo sacs in an ovule can arise due to formation of more than one megaspore mother cells. When you have more than one megaspore mother cells, obviously you are going to have more than one megaspores, and each megaspore can give rise to a separate embryo sac. Okay, and the separate embryo sacs can give rise to separate embryos. एक एम्ब्रियो सैक में एक एम्ब्रियो बनेगा. Okay, if you are having more than one embryo sacs, obviously you are going to have more than one embryos. The second way is activation of more than one megaspores as functional megaspores. यहाँ पे क्या होता है, एक ही फंक्शनल मेगास्पोर एक ही मेगास्पोर मदर सेल होती है, एक ही मेगास्पोर मदर सेल होती है. वहाँ पे पहले वाले में बहुत थी. ओके, यहाँ पे एक मेगास्पोर मदर सेल होती है. It divides by meiosis and results in the formation of 4 megaspores. Okay. Now, normally what happens is the 3 degenerate and only 1 survives. In this case, activation of more than 1 megaspores takes place. For example, 3 megaspores become functional, only 1 degenerate, or in some cases all the 4 megaspores they become functional. So you are having 4 functional megaspores, and obviously they will give rise to 4 embryo sacs, and each embryo sac will give rise to 1 embryo, and obviously we are going to have 4 embryos. Okay, this occurs in case of rosa and colcitium reflexum. Okay, rosa and colcitium reflexum. And finally, adventio embryoni. What does adventio embryoni mean? Adventio embryoni means the additional embryos, they arise from vegetative cells of the ovule. जो vegetative cells होती है ovule की, apart from the embryo sac. Okay, the cells apart from the embryo sac, they can give rise to new embryos, and such embryos are known as adventio embryos. Adventio embryos का मतलब है, if the embryos arise from cells of the vegetative cells or diploid cells of the ovule, this is they are known as adventio embryos. And you can see many adventio embryos at various stages of their development in the same ovule. For example, here we are having many ovules, embryos. They are at various stages of their development. Okay, मैंने आपको पहले ही बोला, जो adventio embryos होते हैं, they can arise from either nucellus or the integuments. Okay, so adventio embryos can arise from nucellus or integuments. They arise from nucellus in case of citrus, mangifera, and opuntia. In these 3 plant species, the additional embryos, or you can say adventio embryos, they arise from the diploid cells of the nucellus, here, this tissue. And in Limnanthus, which is another plant species, the additional embryos, they can originate from the cells of the integuments. Okay, so this was all about polyembryony and the origin of polyembryony in angiosperms. See you soon with a new lesson. Till then, take care.